Now, what does that actually mean for the next 24 hours? Yes, bulls are in control on the shorter horizon. There is no doubt about it. But then we have to slowly move on to the next level of the charts, which is you zoom in a little bit. You would like to see what it's doing. We want to see whether there is a continuation pattern. We want to see whether there is a divergence, all those sort of things. Right now in here, if you notice the pattern, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that was to the downside. So the momentum kind of shifted to the downside. Afterwards, yes, we wanted to see the 1, 2, 3, but what happened in the market is the 1, 2, 3, which is the ABC. That three-leg structure is usually what? Going against that trend. Now, once we completed that, we have the next leg out here where again the momentum is to the downside. So most likely the first thing is going to be something like this where we would like to see a shift in trend. Now, don't get confused. The market already has the answers for you. You go back in time, you look at this. We had a similar structure where the corrective wave was to the downside, the impulse was to the downside. You had the A, B, C, which actually became the next leg up. Now, yes, when you zoom in, you get a little bit more detail into that, and that's important because that ABC on a shorter horizon was like this, and instead of going down, it started as a choppy range breaking back to the upside, where it started that 1, 2, 3 move, which is showing the macro trend. Now, once you understand that the short-term trend and the range is like this, as we have seen before, what is coming up next is the macro horizon. Here, that matters a lot more. Because right now you're in the direction where you're watching the macro, where you understand the 1, the 2, the 3, you went into a consolidative state. Great. Cheers. Now you have the 1, the 2, the 3. Are we going into such long consolidation here? That is going to be a bigger question. Because if that then breaks to the downside, what happens there is something we have seen in the past. Yes, this is the weekly horizon. This is the monthly horizon. But the altcoins, what they're going to do will depend on this structure. If they're going to come back down with a long wick and then close here or not, completely depends on this. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal retail guys get to learn how to become the next top 10% of this world. Right now, if you look at a lot of these large cap assets, they're showing you that the history is still rhyming in itself. Yes, for that, you will have to go look at shorter to long term charts. You need to move from the small to the macro to see what's happening. Now, if you don't want the noise, just go on the monthly and you kind of get to see which direction we're going. This is that direction. It's kind of clean here. Last time you had some sort of movement, it was followed up to the upside. Now, here we are watching something similar. We do have a trend line support coming up like this. So here's a resistance. But then you look at it on the Bitcoin. You want to look at what's going to happen. So this is just one random asset which we are looking at, but it shows you there has been a trend line formation. You're trying to break that for now. And if you do break that, now the macro is open for you. And that's actually a huge move to the upside. And for this particular asset to do something like this against Bitcoin, that shows the altcoin market should be in an upside territory at that time. That phase should be on, right? We have a macro level of resistance here. The moment you see that breaking to the upside, it would be a huge pivot, and that's coming after 2017. So think about this for a moment. This asset was trending to the downside since the negative divergence formation here back in 2017 to 2018. And since then, you're waiting for a macro reversal. Is that coming up? Are we going to see some sort of movement like that? Because if we are about to watch those, it is going to be a way bigger than expected price movement, especially in the alt market. But not every asset would do that. We need to see the trend. We need to then observe, is that trend feasible based on Bitcoin price action? Because that kind of follows the market up clearly, the institutional money. Now, on Bitcoin, we discussed about the macro and all. We understand that it dominates the short term charts for sure. But we need to see at reversal points, are we getting that signal of reversal? Again, you look for this, which gives you the sort of clarity you need, and that shows you the ABC on a 12-hour chart, where you don't have the fake up, right? Because it's a higher time frame chart. And here we are, the momentum is still in here. So what I would like to ask you guys is, when the momentum is in one direction and it fails to continue in that direction, what do you make that up? Like, what do you think about that? I mean, this is a genuine question. If you think it is going to continue with a next leg to the downside, let me know in the comment section. I'm looking at what you guys are thinking. Because last time when we had similar movement, we actually saw the ABC movement like this, then we chopped back down. But yes, we had a fake up before we did this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the downside, right? Say you go back even further. We want to see what the market did to us in the entire cycle and learn from that. See, to minimize the noise, you can use a daily chart, which would be better. Look at this for the moment. We'll come to the altcoin market with similar analysis, but first you have to understand this. You actually had this happening at a longer horizon. So even though it was the impulsive 5-wave direction, it didn't do much, right? It really didn't do much because the prior 1, 2, 3 momentum, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 momentum was like this. If you do look at what the price action is showing you at that point, you would really argue like the ABC correction, all choppiness after this, then end up well. One of the reasons for that is your trend is still the same. The zone, the range is still the same. The price didn't break to the upside, nor did it break to the downside. So the prior movement inside this and the direction of the trend mattered a lot. Now, how did we back then call out it's going to go back up when the majority was saying the opposite? We'll use the same at this point in time too. The thought process was the market was not going down, but the RSI went down. A lot more sellers came into the market. They were not able to push the price down. Right? So it showed negative movements in the market. Now here we have two long wicks which created a range, and then we got more buyers coming in. So yes, we don't have the negative divergence, but we do have a hidden kind of range on a shorter horizon, not the macro peak here, but you look at the total peak. We had more buying activity coming in and we had a bit of push to the upside. If you do compare it with the previous one and say, okay, that's less, but almost close. Yes, that's true. That's okay. We're doing fine. And then we have to look at the macro trend here because that point kind of raises this. We still have some choppiness on a macro chart, on a weekly, right? So it's cool. Now, as this just happened last couple of days and you don't have a weekly chart to see divergence, we'll have to slowly zoom in. Clearly, at this point, what you're watching is the price action still remains in this range, whereas the RSI is dropping. That kind of gives you a clear picture that whether you compare this range or this range, you do have a hidden bullish divergence on a 3-day chart, which is a good thing, which is a positive note. Now, the question is, can we see similar movements in the altcoin market? is the altcoin market showing us something similar. Because when you go on a daily, this is the range. No one debates that. This is the RSI. So there is something evolving in the price action which is showing you, yes, we had the negative divergence, which we were talking big on, and that trend is still valid. But right now it's starting to form a falling wedge pattern. Last time we had a similar pattern here. You can actually observe what the price action was doing with respect to the trend formation. It was clear, right? You actually had this entire range. The price action was making higher lows. Now, if we do come up here and say, okay, can we find similar structure in the altcoin market? We first directly jump onto the altcoin market. We want to take the weekly chart day, because this kind of dictates what a lot of other coins are going to do. So you have the trend line, which we are abiding right now, which is a good thing. If there are assets which are not abiding by this, it broke below, look for a V-shaped recovery. If not, the retest and a rejection. They will not perform like we want. That's not a good story to watch in that market, which is trending higher. So think about it like this. The entire altcoin market is moving up, which means the majority is pushing it to the upside. Some are not doing good. This was the case in the stock market, like the big caps, the FANG were going up, 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 up. The Magnificent Seven, as they call it now, whereas the market depth was not there. Small caps, a lot of others were not doing well, right? So here we are, we're looking at the divergence. A lot more selling activity entered. They failed to push the price below this range. That shows the strength of buying activity. Great. Now, this is going to be the medium-term trend line, which we're getting closer to. And this is going to be the macro trend line. But the first comes at 57 on a weekly chart. Now, okay, let's zoom in. Let's actually zoom in. We go into a 3-day chart here. We're looking at the volume. We saw increase in selling volume and increase in selling activity, which kind of follows it through. There is no directional change. Now we zoom in on the daily with the same concept, right? What we should note here is we had way more buying interest entering, but that did not end up with a long candle to the upside. That shows selling pressure is still there, selling activity is still happening in the market. So what we would like to see here is this entire range staying active, being this choppy, putting a retest of this low. That's one of the reasons why I earlier, when that bounce came in, told all of you guys, don't remove the margins. If you added margins and you are in the safe zone here, keep that safe zone alive, because don't go down deep in that way. Say again, I repeat, this is a daily chart and you see this range as an active range. This low to this low as a stable lows. Retest, fine. And then you see the entire price on the RSI comparison shows you this. Usually, historically, when you travel in two channels, that's a corrective trend. And the RSI is showing you we are inside a corrective trend, not the impulsive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 move. So most likely, I would personally anticipate for this kind of a structure based on the RSI on the altcoin market here. Because if you zoom a little bit out, go back few weeks, few months, you'll have to agree on the fact that each time we created a local bottom, we saw this since we actually started this trend higher, right? So the micro one wave is completed. You're coming back down. That's the choppy move here. We just got the news pushing that to the next lows. So what would be the next one? That's going to be the wave 2 of this cycle. Now, I really don't want to miss that kind of a move in the market, because that usually delivers the biggest ROI structure. We waited through this, accumulated through this, and now we're here. So there is a big question which you need to ask yourself. Are you in this path or are you in this path? We are in this one. There is no doubt about that, right? And while that's happening, you're clearly watching a divergence, which we usually use it for our advantage. Say now we come on to other assets like XRP. Here, the context is really important. You'd actually see people giving you different data for sure. There would be big numbers, small numbers, different thought process. But finally, it's up to you to judge who's giving you more data to understand what's happening. So when you look at the context of XRP price action on a macro, we're still here. We haven't actually moved really good. We just have a similar price structure which we have seen historically, which is okay. So on a macro, all this looks like very small, teeny tiny bit of price fluctuations. So first, we actually saw like a 80 to 100x run up. Next, we saw like a 13, 14x run up. So 15x run up. And in the next one, we actually saw something like a 9x. What would you anticipate for this run up? Because we don't have previous history before this. The coin just got listed, trading and all. But here, based on whatever we can see, there is something evolving. Because all that we have to understand as the basic thing here, which I would argue, is that the supply is increasing compared to this time or this time or this time. Agreed? No one debates that. It's true. But the price action is not back to that range. We're still in this macro move. So the actual run up like this, it's so big. I mean, if you look at this and say that's a 6,000x, that was a huge movement in price action. But yes, that started 10 years back. So now when we are looking at this, we need to also put that into perspective. Okay, this run started in 2014, ended at the end of 2017, early 2018. From then, if you ask single question, which is like, okay, how long did it take to consolidate? This has been a huge consolidative price range. Clear? Now, if you look at the next stance from there, that's where the question comes in. Does this look like we're going to come back down to this range? Or does this look like we're going to come back to test this? That's where now we need to get the support from the other side. So this is a monthly, and just like we discussed last time with the monthly, the volume here to the price action here doesn't look really good. You had increased volume in bullish activity, which didn't materialize into bullish price action. You have comparatively lower selling volume till this time of the month, and you're already here. So we need to actually see where the hell we close that candle. Sure, because there are people who still will go back, take even a macro approach. They would actually go on to a quarterly chart, which is still relevant actually. I wouldn't say it's bad. But the point here is that yes, the macro structure would come, but how long after this consolidation, right? And that is that quarterly chart, which kind of creates a little bit of panic event. Because in that, we'll have to put the argument, okay, we had the corrective move of this leg, which was after such a run up. Now we actually had a micro run up. We did the corrective leg for that. What are we going to do? Okay, we completed that leg here. We had that choppy nature here in the market. But from this point, we need to look at the macro, where we'll have to put in the RSI and look at this. The price to RSI show us some divergence. Do we have something alive? As of now, on a monthly, on a macro, you really don't have much other than hidden bullish divergence, meaning the price was still high, but the selling pressure came too much. So on a monthly to 3-month chart, you're literally watching we have hidden bullish divergence. But again, the problem is that's a quarterly chart. The time taken for that to materialize is more. So the short-term fluctuation which we discussed here is still alive. Yes, the momentum on a short term is to the downside. Sellers are in control, but they are not being able to push through these levels. So usually what happens is that they give a relief rally, or they step back for a moment to push it down at a higher price point. Say we put in similar history. What we are watching is this. After that comes an ABC to the upside, which means once we are done with this leg, what we would be watching is for an ABC. Great. But if that ABC end up short and then starts a 1, 2, 3 there, which is something similar to what we have done in this entire price action range before, which is something similar again to what we have done on a macro on this level. So which side are we going to play out? And that's where the micro analysis comes into the picture, right? And that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to post as much as possible in the SI family, where you actually get to see a ton of these data. We go through like all different possibilities, all different assets. So you get to see the medium, macro, micro, bullish, bearish. Different assets show you different things. So you need to understand the price structure on a weekly, on a monthly, on against Bitcoin. You need to have different perspective. So if you want that kind of a narrative and clear education based on what you can see from the chart, follow the SI family. The link is given in the description below on YouTube or in the bio on Twitter. So guys, if you haven't smashed that like button yet, please consider doing that. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.